Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, to the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here today. If you are listening and you have little kids around and you're not using earbuds, there's a really good chance this is going to be an explicit episode. So what I would suggest is if explicit language offends you, stop this right now, go back and look and see if there's a little E for this episode. My guess is that there will be. I'm going through something. I'm upset. The truth is I swear like a sailor and I just need to talk about what's going on. Today's episode is really about what happens as highly sensitive people when we speak up when something isn't working for us. And we're not received, our message is not received in the way that we would like it to. Either we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard, we're told that we're making a big deal. Somebody says, I feel like no matter what I do, you're not going to be happy. Whatever it is, we don't feel very well received. And then somebody makes a decision on our behalf because we gave feedback. And then really, how can we take that situation and figure out, is this about me? Is this about a limitation on the part of the other person? What do I need to do to take care of myself? How can I honor the feelings that are coming up? And this is something that actually happened this morning. I probably should not be recording because I'm reactive. And when I'm feeling passionate about things is when I can be pretty articulate about it. If I wait another week or two, my perspective will probably change, but I really am often moved by my passion. And the story may change. And what I'm going to say is it's my intention to be as neutral as I can about this. And I'm not coming from a place of blame. I will tell you, I felt blindsided. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling hurt. I don't feel like somebody made a unilateral decision without discussing it with me. Those are things that really stink. We're going through COVID right now. Right now, it's the middle of May. We're about week 7 or 8 into this global pandemic. We're all really close to losing our shit. I get that. I'm close to losing my shit. Who knows if, the person that did this to me or the person who made this decision on my behalf also feels like their tolerance is really limited right now. So while I'm having a lot of feelings about what's going on, I also want to have compassion. We all do the best that we can. And I have a right to have a voice. I have a right to talk about my feelings. And I think especially in this situation, because I feel like the way that it was handled, it wasn't about let's sit down and talk about this. Here's what's working. Here's what's not. It felt like I expressed myself and then I was dropped from my mastermind without my knowledge. So let me see if I can back up and tell you the story. And we're going to talk about what can we do when this happens? How can we assess? Is this something I need to work on? Is this about a limitation on somebody else's part? Is it about their perspective? How do we navigate this with compassion and honor all of the feelings that are coming up? And I'm probably going to do it pretty imperfectly. And you know what? I'm okay with that. So I've shared with you that I'm in this mastermind. And I'll tell you from the beginning, it was bigger than what I would have felt comfortable with. So it's very possible going back that maybe it wasn't a good choice for me to be in this mastermind because I knew that there were too many people in it. The person who was running the mastermind, I trusted. I felt like this person had integrity and really had something that I wanted and has been a mentor to me. The mastermind started, it's maybe a couple months ago. It's very big. I think that there are 18 people in it and we meet over Zoom. That's too many for me. And so maybe in the end, this was a good thing. Maybe it freed me up so that I can put my energies where they're really going to work. I don't know. But at some point I gave feedback and it felt like it was very kind feedback about, hey, the group is feeling large. It feels like there's not as much accountability. I just sent an email and I got a response back that the facilitator wanted to sit with my feedback, which was fine. And then I got a response back that was very kind. It addressed my concern. I'm probably going to say this in a biased way because I'm a little charged up right now, but the two things that didn't really sit really well with me were, I feel like no matter what I do, it's not going to be you're not going to be happy with this because this is about your fear and your mindset. And you have great things to offer the world, and you might benefit, or you would benefit from working one-on-one with a coach that is familiar with HSPs. And so that brought up that narrative of, I can't tell you how many of my clients have said, I don't want to be that person. How many of us feel like we're that person? And that person often means that we express something that we're not happy with, we're not content with, we see something that other people don't see. And whether it's said out loud or not, we've received that message that we're too much, we're that person, we're that disruptor, that truth teller, the person that's nagging, complaining, whatever it is. This is part of what came up for me when I got a response in that email, and it triggered some massive shame and wounding for me. I may have talked about it briefly without talking about exactly what was going on. And I sat with it for a while. What I came up with was, I really was just coming from a place of expressing myself. The shame that came up was, I should know this. I shouldn't be triggered. I should have all this business knowledge, and I don't. I'm not a business person. I'm a therapist. For me, I tend to be very, very mindful of the words that I use when I work with clients. I'm wondering is it possible that? So I don't assume that I know what's best for I don't assume what I know what's best for people. So I tend to be very tentative, and I always want my clients to feel like they get to choose what works for them. And I really don't know what's best for somebody. So the other thing that was challenging for me about this email was some of the wording and the assumption that I would do better if I worked with a coach. So I just sat with the response for a while, and then I got really clear that the part about no matter what this person did, they felt like I wouldn't be happy, didn't sit with me. It felt disrespectful, and it felt like it was about their issue. And then it felt like if I respond, I'm going to be that person. So now not only are my feelings not okay, but if I respond or have anything to say that's not agreeable, then I'm that person. How many of you have experienced that, right? And what I was reflecting on is I have a number of friends that I communicate with, and with my clients as well, I often will say, how did that land with you? And with my friends, it's like, hey, if this brings up something for you, please come back and we can talk about it. That's what we do in relationships. We have this open pattern of communication. It's very likely that we're going to miss a tune with people. And I always tell my clients when we first meet, I'm probably going to say something that pisses you off or rubs you the wrong way. It's not my intention to do that, but it happens. And if it does, how can we work with that? Will you know in the moment? Oftentimes I'll leave a situation and go like, hey, that didn't set right with me. So I let my clients know if something doesn't set right with you and you leave the appointment or you leave our session and you need to shoot me an email, let me know something came up and we'll talk about it in your next session. I understand that that's therapy and this is a mastermind. And I think that when we're talking about uncomfortable things and we want to maintain a good relationship, we need to have this open communication. So I sat with the feedback for a while, and then I sent an email and said like, hey, I just want to let you know that this part of what you said didn't sit well with me. It felt unkind. It felt like now I can't say anything because I'm going to be one of those people, and I know I'm not one of those people. But I just want to let you know, and that I'm really trying to figure out how to find compassion for myself and for you as we go through the rest of this mastermind, which goes through the end of the year. So this was like an 8-month, 9-month, 10-month, I don't know when we started, a long mastermind. And because of my wounding and not wanting to be too much, I said no need to respond. And I realized after I said it that I really didn't give this person an opportunity. And again, this is my stuff, but to say like, hey, I'm really sorry that what I said didn't sit right with you. And again, that was out of my wounding. I don't want to be too much. I'm asking for too much time. We've already had to exchange a few emails, which again is about my wound of being too much. And I recognized that. And I thought, okay, so, and we've had this Zoom call. The first week after I got the first email, I didn't turn video on. Like I just felt like I just needed some distance. And I messaged the facilitator in the chat and said, hey, I'm just needing a little space today. I just wanted to name what was going on. So I feel like I really did the best job that I could as I was going through this, trying to navigate, what do I do? And this shame storm just came up that really threw me for a loop. This morning, I'm in bed, I'm on my phone, and one of my colleagues who's in the group says, "Hey, you dropped out of the mastermind. Is everything okay?" And I'm like, I didn't drop out of the mastermind, and my heart starts pounding. So I thought, I don't think my email was unclear. I just said, I'm trying to find compassion. We'll figure this out. So I go to the notifications in Facebook and there aren't any, which means I've been dropped out of the group and I don't have any access to it. So I looked in my emails and then I saw an email from the facilitator who said they've thought about it and they've decided that I am not a good fit for the group. It was a kind email. He wished me well, blah, blah, blah. My heart started pounding. It really created a reaction. And the nice thing is that I was angry enough that it mobilized me, and I've been trying to take morning walks. I either go into energized mode when I get angry or collapse mode. I suspect the collapse mode will come. It's just part of what happens. So I ended up getting dressed and I went out and went on a walk. It was really nice. I continued to email or, message with this person who reached out to me. And then somebody else from the group also messaged me and said, "Hey, I saw that you left the group. Is everything okay?" It's like, well, I was ejected from the group. I wasn't expecting that. I'm having some feelings about it. Didn't feel very good. And I love the support that I'm getting and that I matter and people notice and they're reaching out to me. So I took my walk and I processed and thought about it. And what it feels like is, if you were to have somebody ring your doorbell and you open the door and everything from your job is in a box right there with a letter from your boss saying, "We're letting you go. Here's your last paycheck. Goodbye." I was blindsided. There were files in the group that I may be interested in, but because I was going to be in the mastermind till the end of the year, I figured when I was ready for those files, I would download them. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to anybody. I didn't get any closure. It feels very one-sided, and it's a really crummy way to feel. I think it was a really crummy way to have this unfold. Obviously, if it were my choice, we would have talked about it. I would have been part of the decision. I would have seen it coming. And to feel blindsided just really sucks. It's just, it's really a crummy thing. I'm not ready to have a ton of compassion, but what I would imagine, but I don't know, is that, I think that this really pulled for something on the part of the facilitator's part. And then it felt like my feedback was, I don't know. I don't even think I want to verbalize what I would guess. And then as I was walking, I thought the facilitator talks about how important it is to get feedback from your community. And a Survey Monkey came out recently. And my feedback was, I think the group is too large and I think a smaller group would be better. So again, I'm thinking maybe that's what pushed him over the edge and that's why he ejected me from the group. Like, I don't know. I may never know. So where do I get to go from here? So the other thing I did is I reached out to a couple of the people that I'm close to in the group and just said, "Hey, I wanted to let you know, I didn't make the choice to leave the group. I'm processing through it, but I wanted to let you know that it really wasn't my choice." And so what I get to do now is to figure out, how do I process through this? What I can tell you and what I came up with even before this came out, I was listening to Brene Brown's podcast called Unlocking Us, and she has a 2-part episode with Harriet Lerner on apologies and forgiveness. And it's really interesting that before all this unfolded this morning, I was listening yesterday, and I'll let you listen to the episode, but I was very clear that I did not feel seen and heard when I gave feedback. And that comment of, "I feel like no matter what I do, you're not going to be happy," was more about the other person than me. And how many of us have heard this before? It's very negating. It's very discounting. It doesn't give us a voice. And as highly sensitive people, we tend to have a sense of justice, what's fair, what's right. We see things, we feel things that other people don't. And how many of us have received some type of message like this before? And then if we respond, again, we're being that person. So I was already really clear that I wasn't sorry. I don't regret what I had shared. I was sharing because it was my feedback. I wasn't expecting anything to change. And this is what my experience was. And I have a right to my opinion. I have a right to my feelings. I have a right to express them. And that is not going to change. And it made it very clear to me that this was not a person, this is before this happened today, that I would continue to engage with, sharing how I was feeling, because he did not have what I need in order to want to share and engage and get close to someone. If you're going to be in a relationship with me and I'm going to invest the time and energy and be vulnerable and tell you how I'm being impacted by things, here's what I need from you. I need you to hear me. I need you to say that you get where I'm coming from. You don't have to agree, but you need to be open to looking at it. And if I tell you that something felt like it didn't land right, I didn't feel seen and heard, it's about you, I need you to be willing to look at that and not make it about me and not take responsibility. And if you can't do that, that's okay. But that also means that I'm not going to be choosing to be super vulnerable with you, because you can't meet me where I'm at, and that just doesn't feel good. So the difference is, and I think that for many of us, we have this thing that if this would have happened to me earlier, I would have made it about me. I shouldn't have said anything. I'm being too much. I'm being that person. I did something wrong. And I'm really clear that I didn't do anything wrong. And I want all of us to get to the point of when we are in a relationship and we have a bump, a rupture like this, that we're able to say, is there something that I could have done differently? Is the other person hearing me, seeing me, responding to me, owning their part, and are they willing to work together to be able to work through whatever this bump is? I'll tell you right now with COVID, we're all pretty much at our limit. And I can tell you in my house, we've had little hiccups with my son and me, with my husband and me, with my husband and my son. I mean, we're all really at our limit. And I can tell you that the person that I would reach out to typically about things has been really unavailable. Not because of me, but because COVID is making a lot of demands on this friend. And there have been other people that have been very present for me. And so, we're in an unprecedented time. We're all taxed. I know this week has really been about the themes that I'm feeling, that I'm seeing with other people, are loneliness and that sense of feeling not enough, feeling irritable, feeling like this has gone on too long. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I just want things to be back to normal. There is no new normal. We don't know where we're going. And I suspect that no matter where you are politically, there is not a lot of unification, at least if you're in the States, about how in cities, states, and on a federal level, how we're handling this pandemic. There's just so much dissension. And so I think all of us are wanting that sense of safety, comfort, nurturing, being seen, feeling like somebody's in charge. And the other episode that I would really encourage you to listen to on Brene Brown's Unlocking Us is about overfunctioning and underfunctioning. And I listened to it the other day and it really resonated with me. And so the other thing that comes into play that has to do with this episode by Brene Brown is trust. Who can I trust? And this need to be in charge and to try and manage everything because I don't trust that anybody else is going to be able to do it as well as I can, because I tend to be an overfunctioner. I also underfunction, but that's the part that really resonated with me. The other thing that I anticipate coming up for me is some grief and sadness. So a combination of anger. I feel like this is unjust. It's unfair. I don't like when decisions are made on my behalf and I don't get a choice to participate in those decisions. I don't like when decisions are made and I don't see them coming. I don't like feeling blindsided. But I'm not going to go to a place of, I feel unsafe. This is an unsafe person. I am safe and I create safety around me and I choose who to be vulnerable with and who not to be vulnerable with. This is my choice and I am not going to put this on anybody else. And I've heard people say, I don't feel safe around you. That's not a safe person. I create my own sense of safety. And I really want people to hear that. We create our own sense of safety and we choose how much we're going to give to people. And I think this is where we start to take our power back. The other thing that I imagine is going to come up is some grief, some sadness and some grief, because how many of us have gotten messages similar to this in the past? Or, I've told you, people have told me you're too depressing to be around. I can't hang out with you. And I really internalize that. And I still have those wounds come up, especially during COVID. I feel like all I talk about with my friends is, I'm having intense feelings and I'm feeling inadequate and I'm feeling like I'm not enough. And whatever I do just doesn't feel like it's good enough. And my gremlins are up. There are pockets of joy. I'm meeting with clients. I'm being present. I'm having periods of play, but there is this heaviness and this roller coaster of emotions. And I keep having this fear that my friends are going to go like, you're just too depressing to be around. And I've said this before, and I will continue to say it, that what my friends tell me is, I love how real and authentic you are. And one of the gifts of COVID has been, we're all going through something, even if it's not the same thing. And I think people are so much more open to talking about their struggles and their challenges because we're all being impacted, but it may be very different how we're being impacted. I have a deep appreciation for that. And I think that during this time of COVID, it's really given me a chance to shine because I do depth, I do processing, I understand struggles, I get that, and I am able to just be really present for people. My guess is that these old past hurts, when this stuff has come up in the past, is probably going to start surfacing. When we start talking about things and naming things, it allows old feelings to surface. This is why therapy can be challenging, because we've locked a lot of this stuff away and we start naming it and it starts to unlock this stuff. The other side of that is that if we allow the discomfort to come up, the pain, the grief, the sadness, the anger, the disappointment, the hurt, we get to feel it and then we heal it and it moves through us. Will we experience it again? Probably. Different layers. It's okay to be a feeling person. As Jen Perry talks about, we don't want dead guy goals, which is to not feel anything. And part of being an HSP means that we often have very deep feelings about things. And how can we learn how to lean into it, embrace it? The word I've been using this last week is allow, just allowing whatever it is to come up and to be okay with it. Sometimes it takes my energy down. I'll tell you, at least one day a week and often more, I have a day where I just sit. I just don't do anything. And it feels like that's the collapse mode. If you've listened to the episode with Laura Reagan of Is What I'm Experiencing Normal, we talk about what our trauma responses are. And we may not all be traumatized by COVID, but we all are being impacted by it. I'm just really practicing allowing it. What I would encourage you to do is, if you have these situations where you're getting messages about how you're showing up in the world is not okay, is to really pause and take a deep breath and to see, is this true? Is this about you? Is this about the other person? Right now, we're going to be triggered a lot more. We're just all on we're all on our last nerve. And so relationships are going to be more tenuous. We probably are going to need to make more room. And I'll tell you, on social media, I can't tell you how many people I've unfollowed and unfriended because I just don't have the bandwidth for nonsense right now. So it also may be helping us to see what we're willing to tolerate and not tolerate, because we just don't have that room for lots of differences and conflict because we're just trying to hold our shit together right now. But how can you empower yourself to really see that if somebody is not able to meet your needs, are you able to talk about it in that relationship? Can the relationship tolerate it? It's not going to be a perfect process, and it's not like somebody's going to respond to you in the way that you want all the time. But being in relationship with someone means that there's room for this back and forth to say, hey, what you said kind of hurt me. It's interesting. Somebody that I polo with probably a year ago, we had a little bit of a hiccup, and it was very early on in our relationship. And I said, I need to let you know that what you said was really offensive to me. They came back and apologized for it. And then we had another little hiccup where they didn't think that they wanted to engage as frequently as I did. And I did an episode about this. I can't tell you which one it is. And so I said, that's fine, but I may back off a little bit. And I just created space. And I'll tell you, a year later, we have this really amazing friendship. And during COVID, we've been going through very many parallel processes. And I didn't go like, fine, if you can't meet me where I'm at, then I don't want to be friends. I just figured I needed to it's pacing. For those of us that really like to connect, it's like we show up to play tennis and the other person's playing chess. So we serve the ball and we're waiting. And if we have abandonment issues, which is me, and attachment issues, which is me, that can feel really painful to be waiting in that silence. So it's about pacing and knowing, oh, we're not playing tennis right now. We're playing chess. So you're going to sit and think about it for a few days, and then you're going to make your move. And then I can sit and think about it for a few days and make my move. As a highly sensitive person, that often feels like we're playing games, that we're withholding. It's just about matching the energy of who we're with. And during COVID, relationships are really shifting and changing. Some of my friends, we've connected even more because our needs are very similar, and other friends have needed more space because they're having to tend to more things that they normally do. How can we have compassion, honor what our needs are, and if we need to play tennis, can we find other people that want to play tennis with us? We can play tennis and chess, but how do we find that and not make it about us and be wrong? Hey again. It's been over 24 hours since I recorded this first part, and I wanted to check in. I need to let you know that you can hear in the earlier part of this recording, and you may hear in this recording, we have a water leak and we've got people working right outside my window. So if you hear some extra noise, it's your COVID treat. What I want to let you know is I realized that I had a trauma response to this, and I'm not a trauma therapist, so all I can do is use my own words to describe how I've been feeling. But thinking about the situation, a sense of shame came up, like I've done something wrong. My heart starts pounding when I think about the situation. Yesterday, I felt very amped up. And I've read that for trauma, you can literally do shaking to try and release the energy. I went on a walk yesterday morning. I did some things to discharge energy initially, but I found that I was just really wired and was just aware of almost like a buzzing in my system. The shaking really didn't help very much. And then I did go into grief mode and kind of, not a collapse, but definitely some grief and sadness and some tears came up. The thing that I love about that is it really gave me a chance to kind of see what messages were going on internally that my inner child was feeling. She did something wrong. She shouldn't have said anything. And it was really nice for me to have an opportunity to show up for myself and to tell myself what I needed to hear. You have a right to your feelings. You didn't do anything wrong. This is somebody that my interpretation is my stuff activated their stuff, and they ended up making a decision without consulting me, which I think is a really crappy thing to do. And to really let my inner child know that I'm here for you. I'm solid. You can count on me. Whatever feelings come up. I love that you express yourself. I love that you have strong feelings. It really gave me a chance to be very present for myself. I know that I've said this in the episode that you've listened to so far, but what's been coming up for me is when this type of a situation happens and there's not a mutual dialogue, here's what I would have liked to have happened is for the facilitator to have reached out to me and for us to have a discussion about, hey, this is what's going on. I'm wondering if this group isn't a good fit for you. I want to know how you feel. That comment about, I feel like no matter what I do, you're not going to be happy, really puts me in a place where no matter what I say, I'm already in that group of people that are complaining. It's not an invitation that opens and invites dialogue and communication. I hear that you're really unhappy. I'm sorry about that. What do you think would be helpful? How can we work this out? I'm not necessarily saying that it's the facilitator's responsibility to do this. And I'm letting you know how it feels. It feels like I'm being dishonored, disrespected. I'm shut down. It didn't give me a chance to respond. It didn't give me a chance to ask for access to the files in the group. It didn't give me a chance to have closure, which is really, it's a lousy thing. And I don't see how that cannot stir up some shame. I have a choice of whether I'm going to jump into the shame story or not. And so far, I've been really mindful about being aware of the feelings that are coming up and to remind myself I didn't do anything wrong and this is about somebody else's limitation. But I want to be really clear with people and encourage you to look at your relationships, and when there's conflict, is there an invitation and curiosity to look at it, or does it bump up against somebody else's stuff and then they make it about us because they just don't have the ability or the awareness or the capacity to know that we can both have opposing points of views and we can still talk about it and be honoring and respectful and invite conversation. And that didn't happen in this situation. And it triggers that sense of what I'm feeling is not okay. And I'm going to shut you down and you're not a good fit for the group. It's just really crummy. What I love is I told you I use an app called Marco Polo, and I reached out to a couple of my people that I go to for support. And this morning, one of my friends was so freaking pissed off on my behalf, and it felt really nice. My guess is probably due to my trauma history. Even though I verbalize being angry, I often don't express my anger. And it just felt so loving and nurturing to have somebody be so angry on my behalf and to say exactly what she felt about the situation. It just felt validating. I felt loved. I felt seen. I just really appreciate that. And this is where we can hold both things together, that yes, this is a really shitty situation. How it was handled feels really rotten to me. And I think as a sensitive person, I'm often viewed as being weak or fragile or vulnerable. I'm like, I'm going to be vulnerable, but I'll tell you, I am so rock strong and solid, and I will be vulnerable. And there's a really strong, steady core. And I'm so blessed to have people in my life that have my back, that support me. I think it would have been really easy to spiral. I still may spiral. Who knows? But I just really appreciated how angry this friend got for me on my behalf. I want to let you know, in the show notes, I did look up the episode that I mentioned. It's bonus episode 43. I've also put links to the 2 episodes of Brene Brown's that I mentioned. There's links in the show notes to those at unapologeticallysensitive.com. Just go to the podcast page, select this episode. It may take a day to get up on my website. I'm probably going to release this episode before my website has a chance to put it up. But if you listen in an app, there may be the show notes included in the app that you are listening to. But I really want to be very clear about how, when there's not open communication, we can really feel like someone's taken away our voice, our ability to respond and to share our point of view. So you can always start a podcast. It gives me a place to share what my point of view is. I mean, I'm joking because obviously not everybody has that, but it can leave you, it's left me with this sense of feeling incredibly powerless. Don't I get a say in how this feels? Like, you drop me from this group and I don't get to say anything about it. I mean, I'm laughing because I'm kind of incredulous. We all do the best that we can. And I have to tell you, from my side, yeah, it's been a COVID adventure. If you are struggling, if any of this resonates and you're interested in reaching out and working with me, I have a couple slots left. It's interesting. I think COVID is really stressing people out. I've had more people reach out for coaching and for therapy recently. I offer a 20-minute consult. I don't mean this to sound cheesy, like I'm trying to sell you something. I really did want to talk about this frustration I was feeling this morning, and just talking about it, at least for right now, it's given me some relief. I hope you are all doing well. This stuff that we're going through is really hard. It's challenging. There's so much uncertainty. We have a new normal. We don't know what that is yet. We will get through this. We are getting through it. It's rough. It's bumpy. There are gifts. Can we hold space for the challenges and the gifts? Because I see that there are both. And we may be having more intense feelings right now. I certainly am. This has really been challenging. All right. Thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you for being here. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.